Howdy, folks. Happy Monday. We have lots to discuss. We have two Stanley Cup finalists. We have some discontent with the Rangers with their lineup going into Game 6, a trade of an injured goaltender, which probably will be the first of many LTIR trades we'll see over the next few weeks. But we'll start with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
So I saw a post on Facebook from Ray Martell. I know Ray. He used to do like a Joe Beningo show. He does
Sugar Ray Martell. Yeah, Sugar Ray Martell.
Yeah, from WFAN. He does some producing on there, and he's really good. And he put up a picture of a golf course, and it says the Black Course is an extremely difficult course, which we recommend for only for highly skilled golfers. Now, just the pretense of that. This is from Bethpage Golf Course, which I had friends that used to live on there. We used to bike there. We used to sneak on there. And
Bethpage
on Long Island, which is, turned into a PGA course probably like 25, 30 years ago. When we were growing up, it was not a PGA course. The only thing they would say is, hey, the Black Course is hard. And people would go on it and they wouldn't care. They'd have fun. And, again, anybody was going on it. Now they put this giant warning things as if to like tell you you're not good enough to go on the Bethpage Black. And it got me like disturbed. I was disturbed by it. I wasn't angry, but I was disturbed. I was like, this is really like I thought if golf wanted a snooty reputation, this is how they got it.
Yeah. Like, why would they even, like, it's not hazardous to your health.
It's not like you're telling swimmers sharks are in the water here.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's just a hard golf course.
The only thing it's telling me is you better cheat a lot on this and not count a lot of strokes because you're going to be a lot of strokes higher than you expected to be.
Well, I know, Russ, listening to FAN back in the day as I did, and I remember when, listening to Mike and the Mad Dog when they were having the U.S. Open or the PGA at that Bethpage Black, that they did make the course extremely tough. They made it tougher because it wasn't tough enough for a PGA event. So maybe they're just using that as a selling point. But really, it's like, I mean, come on.
But again, people know about this course. If they want to play on it, just let them play. Putting up a warning sign is just stupid. That's all.
Well, they probably there's probably an increase in the fee to play that course because it's PGA.
I'm sure there is. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's another reason why it was good that we used to sneak on it.
Yes.
I don't live too much in regret, but if I have a regret in sports is I've had the opportunity to play Pebble Beach several times. Covering the owners' meetings,
right?
West, and I've never taken them up, and now it's so, I think it's $500 or $600 now for 18 holes, and I wish I would have done it just to say that I've done it, and because when I first started going, it was a couple $100, and now
that's what it is. You wished you did it when it was $200.
Yeah, now it's just so expensive, and just to be able to walk along the ocean. Play the same hole. So I wish I would have done it.
Well, let me just say this before we get started. I had some friends come to Buffalo over the weekend, and we did the touristy thing. I was drove up to Niagara Falls, and anybody who wants to see something that's sort of awe-inspiring, go to what's
great. I've done it.
Well, go to the Cave of the Winds. Which is basically there is a elaborate staircase right up against the falls. It's a little scary because you wonder how the hell these stairs are staying in place with the force of the water.
Yeah, they give you the raincoat and all that.
Yeah, and if you have bad knees like I do, the walking down the stairs is challenging. Plus, they say leave your shoes outside, and they give you basically flip-flops, and I'm a klutz. I trip on flip-flops, so the last thing I want to do is be wearing flip-flops going up and down 7 flights of stairs. And then, of course, you leave your shoes someplace that you can't get back to them, so you basically have to break back into the place to get your shoes. But it's awe-inspiring. I'll post some pictures on Twitter, but it really is. But Russ, visiting the Cave of the Winds just reaffirms that Niagara Falls, which is 40 minutes outside of Buffalo, is not Buffalo. It is Niagara Falls. It's in a different county. So CBS, NBC, Fox, and whoever do not show Niagara Falls when the Bills are on because that has nothing to do with the city of Buffalo.
This is your lifelong obsession. I get it. I'm going to tell you one. We were in Jamaica once for a wedding, right? And there's a place called Dunn's River Falls. Now, that is terrifying compared to what you just said because Dunn's River Falls makes everybody connect each other by a human chain. And literally, like there's signs everywhere. If you get hurt, it's on you. Like there's no, and if you get hurt, they might have to helicopter you out because it's a falls and there's no place for you to really go. I want to say 3 minutes into it, we watched a guy trip and bounce and go down a couple of ways and already have a bloodied head. And my friend who was getting married, she kept stepping in like these holes that are in the water, and she was like 5'2". So I kept having to pull her up so she didn't stay in there. And that was terrifying, Mike, because that was something you really could die on. And in Jamaica, they didn't care because it's Jamaica. Like,
Johnny, I mean, I don't know what we're talking about, but I'm going to jump in with
Dunn's River Falls in Jamaica because Mike went to Niagara Falls and said going down these stairs was kind of treacherous. And I said, this was really treacherous.
I thought we were talking about, good old fashioned dangerous parks, like Russ, you remember Action Park? Come on, you and I.
Oh yeah, no. Listen, Action Park was great. It got written.
You go to Action Park? You went to Action Park?
I think I went once, and it was a great documentary. It's on.
The documentary is legendary. I went there every year with my youth group, my church youth group. Every year we went to this place where people died every year.
Oh yeah, people died there every year.
You knew that you knew you were going to a place where people had at least there was like they didn't have a sign, but it wasn't the internet days. But 3 to 5 people were dying every year.
Yeah.
Action Park sounds like Friday night in downtown Buffalo.
It was in New Jersey. It was up at Great Gorge, where it basically was where they used to ski in the winter, and in the summer it was Action Park.
The greatest ride in Action Park, and probably the most deadly, but one you had to do was a box. It was a wooden box cart that had one wheel in the front, 2 wheels in the back, and a metal pole that all it did was brake you. So there was no steering. You went down like a luge run essentially, and you were going down a metal run. So when your metal pole for brake hit the metal thing, it would spark up and you would smell the wood burning underneath your cart. You would smell that it was slightly setting your cart on fire every time you broke. So you're flying down this. It was the most insane thing. I came home so bruised and bad. We're like, let's go again.
The thing that was revealed from the documentary was when they would test these rides, people would get hurt all the time testing them, and they still opened the ride.
Open up. There was one like water slide where you came out of the side of a mountain. It was crazy. And then
I saw that one. I didn't do that one.
It was insane, the whole thing. And yet we loved it.
Okay, Johnny, by the way, you have no idea. But let's get some talk some hockey.
Yeah, and I'm not a good enough golfer for the black horse. Whoever was asking, I'm not a good golfer.
I'm not a good enough golfer for putt. Let's start.
Golf is just the excuse that men make who can't tell their wives they just need some time away.
Yeah.
That's what I think golf is. That's my theory on golf.
Well,
I just want to go take a walk. I just want to go hang out someplace by myself for a bit.
Yeah, you just want to take a walk for like 2 days.
If you don't have a good enough relationship with your wife, you got to tell her you play golf. That's my theory.
My wife actually plays golf. In fact, I was in an alternate shot tournament with her on Friday.
Really?
There you
go. I would shoot, then she would shoot, then I would shoot.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, it's fun if you can play together. That's cool. All right, here we go. Sure, I'm not surprised she played golf. She's a hell of an athlete. All right. Hockey World. It is Monday, June 13th, 2022.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Kevin Allen, Hockey Buzz.
And I'm Eklund, and I'm impressed with how quickly this thing went in this introduction. It's really, really nice. Nicely done, guys.
I can slow it down if you want.
No, I just did. I'm Eklund from Hockey Buzz. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday. Coming to the Hockey World, and I am coming to you from our master bathroom today because I have had a fever for 2 days and I've self-quarantined myself in my house.
Oh boy!
So I think I'm fine. I've taken 3 COVID tests. One yesterday, one last night, one today. Negative, all of them so far. I'm starting to feel a little bit better. I'm probably fine, but my wife and son are going to the Galapagos Islands in 3 weeks. I just wanted to stay away. Because they can't go obviously. So I'm here and I'm talking to you guys and I've been batty alone. Like I've just been spending all my time by myself. This quarantining thing. Have you guys had to do this yet?
No.
Kevin,
quarantining? No.
Not by myself.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, quarantining by yourself is a whole nother level. I mean, I am one who loves being alone. Like I absolutely thrive on it. But when you have to be alone, when you're told you have to stay in that room.
Yeah, then it's a different story. Yeah.
Totally different story. It's the craziest thing. What's wrong with me? Like, why can't I like sometimes I'm like, oh man, I just wish I could sleep all day and watch bad TV. I can't do that right now. And yet I'm not. I'm like, oh, I want to get out of here. I mean, I've cleaned the whole room though. It looks phenomenal. Like I've been cleaning like crazy, which is nice.
I actually have a good story. My son is an occupational therapist, and he caught COVID from one of his patients, and he tested positive, and it was right at the, when everybody was getting sick, and so he didn't want to infect his family, so he basically barricaded himself into his, his and his wife's room. And then they would just leave food by the door and he'd open and take it in. He was in there for 3 days, and he happened to have his pedometer with him because he's a, count your steps kind of guy. And he said, I was in that room 3 days, Dad. And in 3 days, I registered 200 steps. The only thing he did, he said, it was just get up to go to the bathroom. That was it. So 200 steps in 3 days. So
that's something. I know. Well, it's funny you say that. This is the last part of this tangent, but I have an Apple Watch now, so I stood up today for a second because I've been writing, working on the rumor chart, doing things from bed, and I stood up for a second, and my Apple Watch mocked me. It's like, congratulations, you stood up for the first time in 17 hours or whatever it was. I'm like, geez, you need my Apple Watch to mock me about this? It's not nice. I'm doing what I think is right.
Funny. Screw you, Alexa.
Seriously. All right, so let's start. We got to start here with the Stanley Cup, the last game of the series, right? We don't have another game tonight, unfortunately. I wish we did. Last night I was so bummed. I'm like, well, why am I quarantined after the playoffs are no longer playing at night? Like, why do I have to sit here with nothing on? The Phillies didn't even play last night. I was like, ugh. So anyway, I'm sitting here and but yeah, no games. It's over. I want your opinions. I personally, it was, we can go through the macro and the micro of it. I just want to say that I still think that goal shouldn't have counted. Throwing it out there. I think I'm the only one in the world who feels that.
Look, I mean, I thought initially like you did, but when I saw the replay, here was what hit me, and this is what I think the league thinks about. Okay, so Shesterkin had it in his glove, and then it came out. Then it hit Stamkos, then it goes in. I'm like, it hit Stamkos. That's it. It's going to be counted as a goal. If it would have hit like almost any other player on that team, they probably wouldn't have called it a goal. But it hit Steve Stamkos. It's going to be a goal.
It hit him in his glove, though, right?
This is the thing.
But he did have it and lost it.
Again, the NHL has to change this rule after the Blake Coleman thing, which I think it was similar to this. It was there a motion of directing the puck into the net on the Coleman goal? Yes, but it wasn't a kicking motion. Here, there was no kicking motion at all. But Stamkos knew that the puck was going off of his leg. I think he was conscious of the fact that it was going off of his leg. So NHL, how about changing the rule that unless it's a punt from Ray Guy, if it goes off a skate, if it's directed by a skate, unless it's somebody dangerously trying to kick the puck and do a Clint Malarchuk, let the goal count. No, there's no need for Kev. There's no need for all this machinations about it.
Yeah, me too. I'm with you on that. I believe those goals should always count. And it wasn't that long ago that we were screaming for more offense, and that's more offense. So you got to let those goals count. And then those are just such hard decisions. Like you see it in real time and it looks one way, but if you can replay it frame by frame and you go over it and so why just make it easy and say that's just the breaks of the game.
Stamkos knew what he was doing. I mean, and not illegally. Like he knew what he was doing, and that he's like he's been through that situation before. He's just keep moving forward.
It's impossible to determine intent when it comes to something like that. Do I think that Stamkos knew that there was a chance that the puck was going to go off his leg and he kept his leg out there, so sort of like dragging behind? Yeah, that's why he did it. But
we think that, but we don't know that.
We don't know.
We're not mind readers,
right?
If you're going to the net, I think I was talking to a friend of mine who's a hockey coach, and he said, if you're going to the net and a rebound pops up into the air, you're told to just not move and just keep moving forward.
Right.
Forward. Don't move anything like this. Don't move your legs like you're kicking or anything like that. Just let the puck.
And I think the people that would be most pleased to have that decision taken out of their hands is the video room in Toronto, because it's an impossible task. If somebody loses the Stanley Cup because a puck that was deemed to be kicked in was turned down or kept in, you're going to have. I mean, it's already determined. I think a series, because who knows if Calgary could have come back against Edmonton. But so, and I don't know if the Rangers would have come back. It was 1-1. To me, that goal was a dagger, because what was it, 15 seconds after the Rangers?
That was the problem. I mean, it was such a moment. I'm like, wow, the Rangers scored, kind of moment. And then there's like, oh, geez.
Yeah, it was over.
Such a fleeting moment of like.
It's just, I've just grown to accept it. Like, I don't even try and figure it out anymore. It's just, when I tweeted, I said it's like a FUBAR kind of thing. If you know what FUBAR is, then like at this point, the rule is just ruined. Like
yes, I agree.
I can't tell you.
Now, just as an overview of with the Rangers, because that's the interesting story here. Gerard Gallant was questioned today about scratching Kaapo Kakko, a healthy scratch for Game 6. Also, Ryan Strome, who left the ice in warmups for like 7 or 8 minutes, came back and finished warmups. He was put in the lineup, and then halfway through the game couldn't play. So essentially, they were playing, with 11 forwards or 10 and Ryan Reeves, because they barely use him. So I mean, Russ, that Gallant's taking heat over that.
Well, and he should, because again, like, there's a couple things. We were all saying, hey, maybe he'll get Dryden Hunt in there. But when we were thinking that, we were thinking in place of Ryan Reeves, because there's a little more offense and a little bit more puck ability carrying the puck. But that's not what he did. He took out Kaapo Kakko and broke up the kid line to put in Dryden Hunt. And he wouldn't talk about it because he knew if it didn't work, it's a terrible mistake to make, because the kid line was, if not scoring enough, one of their best puck possession lines. And you need that against Tampa to kind of grind them down a little bit, and to also keep them off the score sheet, because they don't have the puck.
Yeah, Dan wrote. I'm sorry.
And I was just saying, it was a double-edged sword. It didn't work out his way, and now there's this belief that he was just kind of putting up with the kid line because it was working, but he didn't really like it. So here's the aftermath. Oh, hold on. Here's the aftermath, because it's New York. This is another city. It winds down, and it's no big deal. But then the next day, you get Larry Brooks posting about it. And now it's like, can Kakko play in New York? Like, that's the next headline, and he probably can't.
Well, here's a direct quote from Gallant. Dan Rosen tweeted, asking Gallant why he scratched Kakko in Game 6. He says, "I was trying to win a hockey game. It's a coach's decision." He said he likes Kakko, feels he's going to be a big part of the Rangers next season. He'd be disappointed if Kakko and Lafreniere aren't in the top 6. That comment is not contiguous with him scratching a guy who he thinks is going to be in the top 6 and benching him in favor of Ryan Reeves, who, what did he play, 5 minutes? It makes no sense.
Kevin, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I was surprised to hear about Taco not going to play. It made me wonder if there was something else going on there.
Yeah.
I have no idea, but
yeah.
Capo was been a disappointment just in terms of the slowness of his development.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of potential there, and the line had been going well, and usually don't break up a winning combination. So that led me to believe it. And the fact he didn't want to talk about it. Gallant is a pretty straightforward guy.
Yeah.
He's never struck me as a guy that wouldn't want to deal and defend his position. So, was there some other reason why he didn't? But I just don't know. We just don't know the answer.
He didn't only change up that line, Kev. He changed the top line. He changed 3 lines in the process to start that game that had very little familiarity in the last, 4 weeks.
Well, yep. He was scrambling because in the last 2 games, Zibanejad and Kreider had no points. So he was flailing around looking for combinations that would work, and they didn't.
Yeah, no, Mike's right, because if he does nothing, everybody's saying,
"No, that's true." But one move that catastrophically moved the whole lineup around. Like Eck talks about this a lot.
I hate that, yeah.
Like this was the one guy you shouldn't have taken out. You could have done other moves to help those guys, but by doing this one, you hurt them in more than one area. So that's the tough part.
It almost made sense. It's almost like, take out Panarin and don't screw things up.
Right. Actually, they'd have been better off doing that.
Obviously. But it's just like, to me, I mean, I do think what you're saying is right, Kevin. I do feel like there's something else that we'll never know, because honestly, it's not congruous with Gallant in general. And it's also not, with what the Rangers were doing, which is like they've overachieved by, almost everyone's standards here, right? By getting to this point. I mean, I picked them to win the Stanley Cup, but that was just me picking them to win the Stanley Cup. So, but they underachieved me, but they overachieved everybody else. And the reality is here, one thing they get out of this is this great team building for the future. Right? The one thing they get out of this whole playoff run is that, like, this is when the team, and one of the biggest team building aspects of this was that line. That line was the biggest.
I feel like that line's finished forever now, based on what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and now, right, after like the incredible run, it feels like you've just wasted all of that, and I for no real good reason, honestly.
It was a big matchup problem for them, but
but the other reason they didn't win was, and this was throughout the whole playoffs, is they just gave up too many scoring chances.
They did.
That was a problem the entire playoffs. And next year, I mean, because the team played so well, and as X said, kind of overachieved, because I mean, they're still kind of an inexperienced younger team, so they're almost playing with house money.
One thing we left out here too, and this is another thing that looked bad for Gallant. So Ryan Strome was pulled out of warmups because he was still pretty injured, and went back to the locker room, came back in, and they still kept him in the lineup.
Yeah, but that's on him. If you can't go to your player and say you're going to be able to play, he's got to. I've talked to enough players. I'm sure you have too, and they say, you got to be honest. You can't say what you think they want you to say. You got to say what you really feel. Like, he should have known he couldn't finish that game.
Right, and at least if Strome is 50-50 and you're going into an elimination game and you're not sure, then you shouldn't have a limited player in Reeves in the lineup. You should have somebody like a McCagg or like a Hunt who can play multiple positions, and you can mix around your lineup, because essentially they were playing with 10 forwards instead of 11.
And there's two other things that were kind of fouled up here. So the fact that Gallant started playing Kopp on the wing now probably leads everybody to think, maybe they're not going to sign Kopp, because nobody wants to sign Andrew Kopp as a winger. You're signing him as a second line center, or you're not signing him. And
well,
so,
Russ,
that's
yeah. I found it curious in Game 5 when they're down 2-1 with, I think, like 18 seconds left, that the guy who took the face-off was Kopp. So. Yeah. That tells you that they do believe he's a center, but maybe
at times they don't. And then, of course, the chat room saying about the Kravtsov signing. When you sign a guy to a 1-year deal that they're at odds with, he's getting traded.
Yeah, I mean, they're making him more easily tradable.
So.
Well, I agree with that assessment, and I think that's the way it's going to go. But apparently, I just heard Elliot Friedman say on the morning show that he's being told that they're going to keep Kravtsov, that he wants to play in New York, and that he wants to stay.
Well, maybe that's the case. But the one point I was trying to make about Gallant is next year he'll face more pressure, because if your team is giving up too many scoring chances, and I just dealt with this in Detroit, the fan base puts that all on the coach. Right. That's something you got to crack down on. And I think because Shesterkin was so good, nobody said anything, and the team was very successful. But next year they've got to really tighten up defensively, and whether it's a new system or changing a couple of guys, I would think Drury would say, well, you got to put in a system that allows that, prevents scoring chances, because they were averaging, coming in that last game, 14.6 high danger scoring chances. Nobody else was anywhere near that.
I felt for Shesterkin, because
he was just put under the gun, and so that's again, what do we say all the time, that you can't transform a 25 goal scorer into a 50 goal scorer, but you can take any defensive team and make it better.
Right.
So
that's a good point.
Now,
really, I mean, I did feel bad for Shesterkin, but at the same time, I think he also grew a lot. I mean, I think the Rangers do grow a lot here. I do agree. I mean, when I heard a caller on XM this morning briefly say something I thought was probably right, is that they were outplayed in maybe 60 to 70% of the periods in the playoffs that they played. The Rangers were, and I think that's kind of true to a degree. Like they were outchanced in a lot of situations.
Yeah, but they're an opportunistic team. Like they always.
Yeah. That is their game.
That's the way they've been playing.
They're a counterattack team. I mean, no question. I mean, you could have said
2 years they've been playing that way.
The year they went to the Stanley Cup Finals.
But I think somebody made this comparison before. I think the Rangers are the closest thing that we've gotten to the '99 Buffalo Sabres, who were totally reliant on Dominic Hasek being a superstar in goal and taking risks to score goals.
Yeah.
Now, I think the Rangers have more offensive talent than that '99 Sabres team, so I don't think they have to take as many chances, but they seem to want to do that. They seem to open themselves up because they have such a difference maker in Shesterkin playing behind.
Yeah.
That team didn't have a Fox.
Well, it's also going to be more imperative that they play better defense next year because, Kreider isn't going to go score that many goals next year. I mean, this was a career year. I'm not saying he can't score a lot of goals. He can, but he's not going to get that many. So
now we can spend the next 2 days talking about the lead up to the.
Yeah, I think we'll basically spend Wednesday talking about the Stanley Cup Finals, but
Braden Point is apparently taking part in a full practice for the first time, and the chatter out there is that Kadri will be back and Kemper is back for Colorado. So nobody's 100% going into a fourth round of the playoffs, but it does look like these teams are going to have almost all hands on deck, except for like Girard and guys who are out for the season. But that excites me because Tampa and Colorado is, you're not going to be able to get that's as good as you're going to get.
I think I was going to say that, Mike. The one thing we'll talk about more on Wednesday, but the one thing I did want to get out there, my early thought on this was that I think this is the most talented Stanley Cup Finals we've had in a very, very long time. Like as far as just the fact that these are two teams that should be there. Usually, there's one team that gets there that's like slightly surprising, but these are two teams that I think it's hard to say that Colorado is definitely the best team in the West, right? Tampa is apparently the best team in the East. I mean, and I think they are the best team in the East, right? So you're really looking at the best two teams playing, which we really haven't seen all that often. There's usually one team that's not quite there. Even teams even when the Blues won the Stanley Cup, they weren't like the best.
They were the worst team in the league at the end of December. I was thinking about that. Could you say Pittsburgh, San Jose, maybe, or
I mean, no, San Jose wasn't the best team in the West that year either. Pittsburgh was really good. I mean, it's just to really find like best on best for a Stanley Cup final.
Chicago, Tampa in 2015.
Yeah, maybe. Although the Tampa team wasn't quite there yet.
Well, but they
had the best. They had the best line in hockey. Which line? Wait, what year are you saying? 2019? You said?
Yeah.
2015.
Sorry. I thought. Yeah, no. I was talking about.
I mean, most of the players that won the cups were there. They were young, and remember Bishop was the starting goalie, and they went to Vasilevsky during the series. But the talent was there. They were just young, and that's.
04 there was a lot of talent in 04 with Calgary and Tampa.
Red Wings and Penguins 08, 09.
Yeah,
that's a ton of talent there.
That's a good one, but that is also 14 years ago. I mean, that's the thing about this. Like, we really don't often get this. So I'm liking this fact. I mean, it really is a showcase for hockey.
Now,
as it should be.
Transitioning to goalie talk here, because there were a couple things that were interesting. One was the trade over the weekend of Ben Bishop, along with a 7th round pick for future considerations. Bishop going to Buffalo. Obviously, Bishop is done. He's essentially retired, but he's got a year left in his contract. The reason that the Sabres made this deal and got an extra 7th round pick is because his cap hit is $4.9 million. He's a $3.5 million salary. So the Sabres, who had $40 million under the cap, this is basically a $4 million or $4.9 million coupon. That they're going to use to get to the cap floor. That also tells me that
what I don't understand about this is why do it for a 7th round pick?
I think they would have done it for free, Cap. I think their plan is they're going to be a budget team. They're not going to spend money to get anywhere close to the cap ceiling. So I think that this is okay. Well, 4.9 against the cap. We're only paying 3.5 for it. and we don't have to. We can put it on. It doesn't even count.
I still don't get it.
Yeah,
because you can go out and get just add a player for $3 million who might be able to help you. Like, I just don't understand this. You're going to pay anyway. You're going to pay the money.
I think it's the 1 year. I think if you go out in free agency, it's going to be tough to get somebody to sign for, say for
as somebody said on radio, and I agree with them. So what? So you got to overpay somebody for a 1 year deal, but you actually have a player, and instead you're going to pay a guy who's not going to play at all.
Right.
So like he says, explain to me what the logic of that.
And
he said, I keep reading these stories where everybody said, yeah, well, that makes sense. Well, he said, doesn't make sense to me. You can bring the guy in.
Well, but I do think that, I do think that this is the first of many deals, because we heard about Shea Weber. We don't know about Carey Price, but if Carey Price says that he can't play the final, I think 3 years. His contract's going to get traded.
Almost all these make sense, but this one I couldn't make sense of. Now, maybe there's something I'm not seeing here.
I'm going to try to talk to somebody and see what there is. There is something we're not seeing here.
I either I don't understand part of the rule or everything, because why would you do this? You could just bring just sign one player and he can actually play for you. I mean, now you're going to you're going to get to the cap, but
I would think it would have to do more with the what they think is the inability of them getting anybody in free agency to sign a 1 year deal. I
guarantee you that I could go out and sign somebody and overpay him and get him to come to Buffalo.
Oh, overpay me out.
Well, no, I mean a legitimate player.
Right.
So, you know what I'm saying? Like, how hard could that be?
Now,
if there's a guy out there who was $2 million and he could help you a little bit, and you're going to say, hey, you won the lottery. I'm going to give you $3.5 million because I got to get to the cap floor.
Here's my other thought. Maybe the team that is doing this is close to their 50 contracts, because once you put them on LTIR, it's not counting as a contract, right?
That too.
So Dallas, you think?
With Dallas, they were probably going to be close to the cap, so that was the reason.
Yeah, no, I get why they would do it. I just didn't understand. There's got to be something I'm missing here, and maybe someone in the chat room knows the CBA or something. There's something that's just obvious that I'm not thinking of, but I don't really understand this, and thus far, my group here has not come up with a reason why they're doing it.
I'll put this on us.
I got nothing.
Yeah.
How dare you?
Well, no, but do you know the answer to that? Why they would do it?
We all work.
No, I just gave you my only guess.
I like I said, I think it's two things. I think it's the fact that they get a $4.9 million cap hit for $3.5 million in salary. So that's $1.4 million less than they actually have to spend, even on a even on a 1 year deal. If you're paying, say, Taylor Hall $8 million for 1 year, you're paying him $8 million. Here, you're paying somebody $4.9 million on the cap, and it only counts $3.5 million.
You're saving actual dollars. That's true too. That is the other thing.
And with the Pagulas, believe me, they'll try to save every single dollar that they can find.
Yeah, you're not paying.
But they're not. But don't you see my point? They're not saving that because they're not getting a guy that's going to play for them.
Not going to play.
No, but right now they're still in the midst. They're still in the midst of the rebuild, and they don't want. I think they don't want to spend all the money that they could. I think they're just going to barely spend over the cap floor. But I understand that. But
no, I get what you're saying, Kev. I mean,
there has to be something here that I'm not.
Yeah. Now the other thing was the machinations in Edmonton. The Koskinen sign, that's not big news because we knew Mikko Koskinen was not an NHL goalie.
That's still big news. I mean, it's
really. I mean, nobody in the NHL in their right mind was going to sign that guy with the 5-hole as big as a Mack truck. But good luck in Switzerland. But the interesting thing is the ramification. Now, Ken Holland apparently went to the representatives for both Mike Smith and Duncan Keith and said, we would like to know what their disposition is going to be before July the 1st. Both of them have a year left in their contract. Yeah. I think Keith is 38. Mike Smith is 40, I believe. They both have years left in their contract. If Smith retires, then the money drops off their cap. The interesting thing is with Keith, if he retires, he says, I'm done, then the cap recapture kicks in. And he's a $5.5 million cap hit. And according to Puckpedia, the cap recapture, because he was one of those long contracts that were deemed, I guess, retroactively illegal by the NHL. It would go as a $3.4 million penalty towards the Oilers. So they would only save a couple $1 million on the cap if Keith retired. The only way that they would get the clearance of $5.5 million is if he went on LTIR and said physically he could not play. So really, Keith could screw over both the Blackhawks and the Oilers if he decided I'm retiring, and that's it.
Right. I mean, this is definitely something I want to talk about with buyouts, because the buyout window is opening up, and I'm going to get some of the players. I'm going to talk about that a little bit today.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to, and I think you're absolutely right, Mike, that some of those old contracts are still killing some teams. I really wish they'd done something about that, like as far as grandfathering in something or making something happen there to help league teams out, but they didn't.
They can't. It's part of the CBA. They'd have to.
Yeah, no, I know. When they did the CBA, they could have made it. So it was at that point, but they didn't.
might have an explanation for Kevin. I'm going to take one more stab at this.
Please.
So I looked at Buffalo, and they had $8.7 million in roster bonuses, which don't count until the end of the year. Maybe when you get this phony baloney money, it takes away the sting of having to pay that if you've set a budget and you just don't tell the world what the budget is. Like, clearly, they might say, to Kevin Adams, don't spend more than this amount of money. And with the roster bonuses, they go over. But with the LTIR, then they wouldn't go over.
Well, that's the thing. Bishop's contract with Buffalo will not go on long-term injury because they want it to count.
Well, either way. Either way. But that way,
with Dallas, it would.
The roster bonuses.
There might be something to that, Russ, and it may be just like I said. It may be fairly obvious to people within the hockey. The people that will look at the.
Yeah, I just did digging. That's it. I'm done with it.
Before we talk the buyouts, because there's a lot of.
One other thing I want to get to for that, Mike.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to pop this up and see if anybody's heard anything. Because, excuse me, we're less than a month away from unrestricted free agency, and there has not been a peep out of the NHL regarding the Evander Kane's arbitration. Kevin?
Well, we talked about this the last time, but I find it curious that when you see people discussing it in the media, they're talking about some kind of settlement. But how can you do that with the cap? I don't understand that. How can there be a settlement?
I don't either.
So either you win or you lose. You can't really,
arbitration works, right?
Well, no, it's not that. But I'm just saying that according to the CBA, a contract is a contract. Like Jonathan Taves can't go to the Blackhawks and say, I have a 5-year deal and I want to get out of it because I don't want to play for you. I don't like you guys anymore or whatever. And you can't say to Jonathan Taves, no, we're gonna do that because that's the way the salary cap, the CBA works. So essentially, even though this is a complicated deal, that's essentially what they're saying. If the arbitrator rules that it's a valid contract, it's a valid contract. You can't. You can't buy a guy out if you make a mistake,
right?
Unless you can't just say, well, we're going to settle for half your money.
Well, the only precedent here apparently would be the Mike Richards situation because they tried to terminate his contract, and then there was some settlement where there's cap hit for the LA Kings. And I think Richards got 2/3 of the money, but it was not a prototypical buyout. They terminated it, and then there was a settlement. I mean, the thing here is that Kane, I think, has had 3 years left at $7 million. I mean, that's if they find that San Jose's responsible for all of that, which I think is probably not going to be the case. They're screwed because they signed a hurdle to that extension with the thought that Kane's money would be wiped off their cap, and then they're in deep trouble.
I think they're going to trade Burns to cover them either way. So that seems to be the rumble out there.
I think the hard part to figure out is, did Kane break the rules here of the building and the league, like the AHL? Because it seems like he did, based on what we were hearing and reading, and with COVID protocol. If he did, then that might be enough to get out of this.
They might be able to avoid the contract that way.
Yeah. That's probably what they're trying to do.
It's weird because it behooved, it didn't actually behoove him to do that, but I was just thinking, so someone in our chat room said they heard the Kane thing might have been settled like quietly behind the scenes. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, they would release
They would
that.
report something and
Something
then
has
just
to be
say,
about that.
terms not disclosed.
Because Kane's way too interesting of a player, and with everything that's going on in Edmonton, everything like that. With Mike Richards, who wasn't playing anymore, I think at that point or whatever, it was.
No, he wasn't playing
It
anymore.
was pretty quietly done.
He played after that. He had a contract with Washington, I believe.
Oh, that's
So
right. He did have
He did
Washington.
play 1 year.
Right.
Yeah. All right, so here's my interesting stat today for Monday. There's something that came to an end after 41 years. You guys might know it if you know it, but is the craziest statistic, like one of the craziest things I've ever heard in hockey. And it ends with this Stanley Cup.
Oh, I know what it is.
Is it the Yager thing? The
That's
Yager?
the Yager thing, which is such a cool thing. If you don't know, if you're not familiar with it, basically the concept is that since 1980, when Brian Trottier, and played for the New York Islanders in the Stanley Cup Finals, up through last year when John Merrill played in the 2021 Stanley Cup Finals, there has been a player who's playing in the Stanley Cup Finals who was on an NHL team with Jaromir Jagr 41 years in a row. That's a crazy thing. I mean, that really is just like, Jagr played for a long time, obviously, and this is definitely boosted by the first 4 years of Trottier, and before. I mean, what year did Jagr come into the league? 90, right?
That's about right.
I think 91. Yeah, somewhere in there. But only 2 of those years of the 41 is it Jagr himself that's in the Stanley Cup Finals. So it's pretty crazy. I mean, like Braden Coburn and Braden Shen in 2020 and 2019 both played with Jagr in Philly. I'm not really sure where Alex Chasen played with Jagr in 2018.
Unless he played with him in 2020 overseas.
No, it was an NHL team.
Okay.
So it was one of the NHL teams. But Matt Cullen obviously played in Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just a crazy stat. I think it's kind of fun. I think it's kind of a cool.
Yeah,
I
I have something to add to that. Because that stat has been floating around now for 2 or 3 days. Bob Duff, a colleague of mine, went and looked because he was pretty sure he was right on that. That Gordie Howe played from 1938 to 1979, having a similar statistic that someone that he played with was like the Stanley Cup winner, with the exception of the War year of 1944. Wow. He had no teammate. So, and if you include WHA players, that streak goes on even longer. So,
oh my gosh, that's fascinating. I like it.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. And it's really something we have to. I will look at. I'm sure. Did Bob Duff put that up anywhere? Probably? Yeah,
it's online at Detroit Hockey now.
Okay, definitely check that out for sure. So now we're going to talk a little bit about buyouts and where we are right now with buyouts. There are a couple. The window opens officially
July 1st.
July 1st, right? Yeah, that's right. Which is still one of the few things that is July 1st. That's why I was wondering. But I'm trying to get my list up together here. But what are some obvious buyouts we're looking at out there at this point? Do you think
obvious buyouts? Well,
yeah.
I'll start with what I cover. I think there's a very good chance that the Leafs buy out Peter Mrazek. If there's not a trade, which there is still a possibility because of salary retention, he's got 2 years left, and a team would rather trade a guy and retain salary for the 2 years rather than buy him out and have the salary spread out over 4 years. It's embarrassing to Kyle Dubas because it's an admission of a mistake, but I think at this point he needs the cap space to do the right thing, right. And I do think that he will get bought out.
I can give you 2 that I cover: Patrick Nemeth from the Rangers and JVR from the Flyers.
Kev, do you think anybody for Detroit will get bought out?
I don't. They don't have any real bad, contracts, and Yzerman's been signing everyone for 1-year deals, 2-year deals, and so either you're a UFA or you've been extended. So I don't think there'll be any buyouts.
Now I'll tell you one act that I would be surprised, even though they love the way he plays and it fits into the narrative of Daryl Sutter. I think Calgary is going to buy out Milan Lucic because his cap hits $5.25 million. If they buy him out, it's $666,000 and then $41,000. That opens up almost $5 million in cap space, and with their needing to re-sign your boy Mangiapane and maybe have some room to sign Kachuk and or Goudreau, I think they have to buy out Lucic.
Yeah, I wonder about Lucic. Like I've heard they're not going to buy him out, but
Yeah, I think they like him. I think they're going to live with it.
I know I'm trying to get
Yeah,
my
but
list.
$5 million, $5 million, and you need to open up cap.
Yeah, but they won't need to open up cap space because Goudreau's not coming back.
Okay,
That's what I was going to say. They obviously have a pretty good handle on whether Goudreau's coming back, and I think if Goudreau's not coming back, I think they'll keep.
I'll give you a couple more. One, it was curious right at the end of the season that Carolina came out and said Jake Gardiner is healthy. That means Jake Gardiner is getting bought out because now they could have put him on LTIR, but the only reason to come out, he may be healthy, but if they deemed him healthy, then with a year left in his contract at $4 million, and a team that needs cap space, I think they'll end up buying him out. Timothy in the chat, Subban is a UFA, so they don't have to buy him out.
Yeah. JVR, let's talk about that for a second, Russ.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that's a really good possibility.
Because they've been trying to trade him for a year and a half.
Yeah.
They've gotten no buyers. And at this point, I think everybody understands how he scores his points. So everybody's waiting for the day that JVR gets bought out so they can get him cheap. Yeah. Nobody wants him even at the reduced salary that the Flyers would give him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But he's an interesting player in terms of once he becomes a UFA, I mean.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you'll put $1.5 million into him because then whenever he gets you goals, you don't really care. But once you hit like the $4 million mark, even for JVR, the expectations are there, and he's not going to come through for you.
Yeah,
I got a couple more for you.
I got my list here. Sorry, I got my list, Funny.
Okay, go ahead.
Zach Cashin is one of them.
Yes, that was one.
He's definitely in there. Vlasic in San Jose, I've heard.
Yeah, I can see that.
Which is really is an end of an era. That's a tough one, I think.
Especially now that Wilson's gone. I mean, he probably staved that off, but now,
one more season. Yeah, it's almost like, to me, you got to do this. It's like the Ryan Suter type thing.
Yeah.
But it was 4 years, $7 million. Not even.
I mean, there's not a lot of savings there because there's so much signing bonus. That's the thing. It's like, I mean, if he's done, he's done. I get that. I don't know if he is done, but that's that's gonna be a killer. Now Bartek is in the chat here. Delzato is under contract for one more year. Colin White is one of those 25-year-old buyouts that if he gets bought out, they save one. It only counts 1/3 against the cap instead of 2.
Right.
I believe there's a good chance that Matt Murray gets bought out because his contract was no signing bonus. So even though it's a $6.25 million cap hit, I looked it up yesterday for a story for Hockey Buzz. His cap hit would be 175, 750, 2.5, and 2.5 over 4 years. That's a lot of savings. Now maybe they would retain salary if there was a team out there interested in. It's funny. Chris Johnston from TSN came out and mentioned Matt Murray as a potential interest for Toronto the same day or the day after I had mentioned it as a possibility here. So, and I'm not saying Chris, Chris has got impeccable sources, but with his history. And, I think it's a possibility if he gets bought out. If it's 6.25, I don't think the Leafs will be interested.
I'll tell you what, with Colin White, I could see when he gets bought out that he goes right to the Bruins because I thought they were going to draft him. I don't know about Montreal. He's from Boston, and
I know he's from Boston.
And they need cheap players. And he if he's actually healthy, he could play.
Another name I have is Tyler Johnson in Chicago.
He's hurt. He had the same surgery that.
I don't know what his status is going to be.
He would have to be deemed healthy to be able.
Somebody in Chicago told me this, so I'm guessing that
if they give him a clean bill of health, then they could buy him.
I'm guessing that they think they are going to because of what it's just because the person that told me. I don't know. That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, the other one.
Zucker in Pittsburgh. That's an interesting one too.
Who's it?
Jason Zucker in Pittsburgh.
Okay. Here's the one that I heard, and I have no idea whether it's true or not, but it raises a bunch of interesting questions, and that is I heard the possibility of them buying out Kasperi Kapanen, and he's young. Now the thing is he's not buyout, not qualify him. He's an RFA with arb rights. He was making over $3
That
million.
would seem strange. That would seem bizarre.
Well, it depends on whether they think that he's just not reaching his potential, and they don't want to guarantee him, especially with Letang and Malkin.
Yeah, they were very disappointed in him this year. There's no doubt.
Yeah. What do you think on Zucker, Kev?
I don't know. Like, I still think he has value out there in the league.
Yeah,
What would be his buyout?
His buyout
is 1 AV this one more year. It would be $2 million in 2023, 1.7 million in 23-24.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if they figure they can't move him, I would guess so. I mean, they need some space, but they really have enough to do what they need to do. Like, I think they have 24 million left, and for Letang, Malkin, and then they need to clean up their defense.
And they need a goalie because Smith is a UFA.
Yeah, they just need a backup goalie, but I think you could, set aside $2 million and they can have a decent, goalie for that. So I think they have enough to do it. I don't think they have to buy out Zucker.
Yeah,
So,
I would be really interested in if he's out there. I think he's going to get signed again pretty quickly.
yeah, that's
somebody would take him.
yeah, for sure. That's why I don't know what they would gain by.
I'll give you another possibility. Nick Foligno with Boston.
Yeah, I had that one too, and I think that I do think that's going to happen. It's a really simple buyout, right? It's like just
he was 3.8 million, and buyout. I think his contract was there was no signing bonus. Yeah, $1,933,000 for the 2 years cap.
Right.
So they would save almost $2 million, and yeah, that I think, and don't discount the possibility of him going back to Columbus, or maybe even going back to Toronto or even Buffalo, because he's got ties forward.
I'll tell you where he could go is Minnesota, because
with his brother.
They tried hard to get him before, and they love his brother obviously in Minnesota. He's one of the most beloved Minnesota Wild players. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if they found a way to get him there. I mean, they don't have a lot of money, but he might want to go play with his brother. Philip Myers and the Predators. That's another one. Former Flyer.
He's another 1/3 buyout.
Yeah,
He's
Right. That's why teams want him, because you literally could just get him and never have him report and just get the savings.
Well, so, and I have to check this out, because somebody is saying that with the Duncan Keith thing, it would be a $3.4 million credit to Edmonton. That doesn't make a lot of sense, but I know that with Myers, if he gets bought out, the team that buys him out gets a credit in the second year. It's sort of like the Jared Cowan buyout with Toronto a few years ago.
Yeah,
they got a credit, so he could get traded to somebody who wants the credit, and then they buy him out. So it'll be a weird thing.
I guess that could happen too, right? Philip Myers obviously has been injured a lot. I feel bad for this guy though. I mean, I don't have a soft spot for Philip Myers. I always thought he was going to be better than and he was. There was like a 3-month period where him in Philadelphia where he was really, really, really good.
Is there a possibility Florida buys out Patrick Hornquist?
Yes, there is. And I do want to talk about Florida for a second too. They obviously, I'm not obviously, but if you didn't hear, they fired their whole staff except for their head coach.
Right.
I haven't got any information on this at all as to what's exactly happening there.
That means Brunette will be the assistant to somebody.
They kept one assistant coach there.
They kept one assistant?
Okay.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
I also heard that it's very possible that Brunette will be brought back as head coach and just be allowed to hire his own staff. That means Florida thinking that, there was a problem between Quenneville's staff and Brunette, essentially, because that's what they're working off of, right? So if that's the case, it's definitely a vote of confidence for Brunette.
Some players gave him a vote of confidence. I know Barkov did, and one other was pretty vocal about it.
And what Barkov says goes a long way.
I think it was Ekblad.
Yeah, it might have been Ekblad.
Players that go a long way, right, in there. So, I mean, it is hard. I mean, you would never really take that into account with an interim coach. Like that they're working off the old head coach's staff. You
don't think about it.
You don't think about it very often, and I didn't really put that into my head, that Brunette's, because all the problems with the power play, these are assistant coach things, usually. Like the power play is an assistant coach thing. And I wonder, you just wonder that. I wonder that a lot. Also, I've heard there has been some movement with Giroux possibly resigning in Florida. I think he really wants to.
Well,
I can see that happening.
We'll see.
Well, I mean, Kev, the interesting story that hasn't yet played out, and maybe it will over the next 48 hours, because we know how the NHL sort of frowns on news being made during the Stanley Cup final, is some of the coaching situations. I mean, I would expect, at least one, maybe two of them to be announced pretty soon, because and once it starts, then they're probably going to wait until after the finals.
Well, it seems like I know Cervelli has reported it's Tortorella or Trotz, but most people around the league thinks it's the Tortorella. So,
Cassidy's still involved with the Flyers.
Most people, Cassidy's out of it for Flyers.
Is he really?
He had a Zoom call, and that was basically it. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and there was all kinds of Tortorella sightings on Twitter over the weekend in Philadelphia. So I don't know whether they were true or not.
Look, we've all felt that way, except for Eck, because he just doesn't want it. We've all felt that way for a while.
I'm not. Listen, I want to make myself known about Tortorella. I am more into Tortorella than I was Vigneault or Therrien. I mean, like I'm not anti Tortorella. I do think with the other coaches that are out there, I think there might be better options.
That's like somebody somebody for the Allies during World War II saying, "I'm rooting for Joe Stalin over Hitler."
I like broccoli better than Brussels sprouts. Got it.
Right.
I don't dislike Tortorella. First of all, it would be fascinating. He's always he's wonderful to have in town because it's all kinds of crazy quotes and great fun things, right? He definitely gets his team to work hard for sure. There's no question about that. I am not completely 100%.
Is he your number one choice?
No, he's not my number one choice.
Is he your number two choice?
No.
Is he your number three choice?
He would be in the top 5.
He'd be in the top 32.
But that said, there's a lot of good coaches in that. So I mean, it's like you're talking about some good coaches ahead of him there that I would go with before him. But that's just. But hey, I'm not. I'm definitely. I don't
take him over Jeff Blashill, who did interview with the Flyers.
Yes, I would take him over Jeff Blashill. I wouldn't take him over Trotz. I wouldn't take him over. Cassidy. I wouldn't take him over Tocchet.
Would you take him over Mike Babcock?
I wouldn't take him over Cassidy or Trotz. So.
Well, what about DeBoer? DeBoer's still.
No, I wouldn't. And I like Tortorella. But I think
so. Maybe putting him at 4 or 5 is not terrible.
What about DeBoer? DeBoer is still in it, actually.
DeBoer versus. I think that's a toss-up for me.
See, I think Tortorella will get. He fits with what we've heard the Flyers want, which is they don't want to rebuild, they don't want to retool, they want to see if they can contend over the next couple of years with most of the players that they have right now, and he'll squeeze the last juice out of the lemon. The problem is, I think that team should rebuild because I don't think they're good enough, but they're not going to because that's from on high. That was their directive, is not to rebuild.
I will throw if it is Tortorella, I'm going to throw this out there. There's Wise has not been announced yet. First off, secondly, because the one thing I have heard is the Trotz offer that they made. From what I heard, from what I'm understanding, includes like a management type position as well. So actually, because Trotz wants to have some say in personnel. So whether that's like an assistant GM, quote unquote, associate GM now is the new term. Right?
This explains something, Mac. I think what you're hitting on here explains why Fletcher doesn't want Trotz, because he can see himself getting pushed out by Trotz.
Yeah, although I've heard Fletcher does want to go to the president's spot eventually. I've heard
no, but he'll get pushed out altogether if Trotz is there.
Well, not if he hires him. It might be like, okay, I hire you, I move the president.
I have a sneaky suspicion if that happens, he'll be completely out in a year.
But I think that might be what's holding us up here. I think that the Trotz offer is a little more intense and Trotz might be waiting on getting back to it. That's just something I heard from a couple people. I have heard that I heard from 3 people who interviewed for this job. I talked to 3 different people who interviewed, none of them which we're talking about in the top 3 with Trotz, Tortorella, or I didn't hear from Trotz, Tortorella, or
Well, Montgomery was supposedly on the radar for Philadelphia, but the chatter out there over the last 48 hours is torts.
Yeah.
No, and but I think that what I was trying to say is the 3 people I talked to that aren't major players all said to me the same thing from the interview. They really felt like there is a definite lack of leadership at the top in this group, that they really don't get a sense that it's being steered by anyone in particular. And that is really concerning to them as far as the job goes. That and maybe because Fletcher is a good guy for sure, but he's a passive type guy. Guys at Comcast are they are what they are.
He's passive and he's inefficient. He's inefficient.
Yeah, there is. I can see how when you interview with them, you really don't feel like you got like this one guy who's like driving this thing, steering the ship. This is the vision we have. Like the lack of vision. I was told a couple times, by a couple people who interviewed with them. That was kind of concerning.
Well, there's a couple of guys steering from the rear, Eck. You know that.
Yeah, and I think that the one thing I will say about Tortorella that is a positive for him is that he is definitely one of those guys who will fill any leadership type openings that are there. Like he will jump into those gaps.
Yeah.
And this will become his direction. Like this team will be his direction, and I think that Fletcher will let that happen because of the way he is, good or bad. So that's something I don't know. We'll see how that plays out, but that's something. Detroit getting close, Kevin. I've heard that Detroit's getting close.
No, they're not even.
Really? Okay.
They're waiting till the Stanley Cup Finals over because they're looking at the assistant coaches. So and there's 3 possibilities in Tampa as well. So I would be stunned if they're close.
Okay.
I don't even think. I do think Cassidy has entered the picture in Detroit. I don't know if it's seriously, but I wouldn't be shocked if Yzerman is looking for kind of a bridge coach.
Yeah.
And that's a guy who would take a 2 or 3 year deal.
Is there anybody in their organization now, like in Grand Rapids or anything like that?
No.
And that seems to be what Chicago is doing too, Kev.
Right.
The names that are coming out there, Derek King was the interim. They're interviewing Luke Richardson. They're interviewing Brad Shaw. It sounds like they know they're going to rebuild, so they're not going to hire the big.
Yeah, and the one thing you got to keep in mind with Detroit is Yzerman is a big presence, and he's he's respectful of his coach, but he's not going to accept John Tortorella not respecting his decisions. I know there are a lot of coaches around the league who feel you manage and let me coach.
Yeah.
Yzerman will let you coach, but he's going to tell you if he's not happy with who's being played.
Yeah.
And, because this is in his mind this is a special circumstance.
Yes.
Yes, they're trying to win, but they're trying to develop players.
Yeah, right.
So I think that's why I'm not sure a big personality like Tortorella would work or Gary Trotz. Those guys have their own way of doing things, and I'm not sure that it would necessarily be the Steve Yzerman way.
Now, before we end the show, and something we can talk about tomorrow, there was a report out of Anaheim that John Gibson has told the Ducks that he is open to being dealt. And the reason is he has a modified no trade. He's informed the Ducks that he is open to it. Now, I don't know if that means we had heard speculation that they were interested in doing it. So if you put the two together, then I think that increases the chances of him playing someplace else next year.
I don't think we have heard speculation that they're interested in doing it, Mike. I kind of disagree with that. Like I know last year it came out it was released around the trade deadline that that his name was out there, but I think that might have been more driven by him.
I
don't think it's Anaheim. I don't think Anaheim wants to trade him in any way, shape, or form.
Well, all I know is, maybe the reports that came out a month or 6 weeks ago after the deadline were from him, but they've been out there. We've talked about it on the show, so you obviously know.
But but not really. Have we really talked about like Anaheim actively pursuing trading him?
Well, we know that they have a young goaltender in Lucas Dostal that they probably.
But he's not ready next year.
He's not ready now.
This is what I would say about that. Like, I have no idea what Pat Verbeek will do in that circumstances if they are true. But he and Steve Yzerman worked together for a very, 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 very long time. Right. They're really tight. They have a real keen understanding of how they think a team should be built. And if you told Steve Yzerman that, he would say, "Oh, that's nice." And, he would make a decision based on what's good for his team. And I think that's what Pat Verbeek would do.
Yeah. He's not going to trade him for a bag of pucks, but if
not even that, he may not trade him.
Right.
He's not one of those guys that says, well, you've asked to be traded. I want you out of here.
Right.
I just don't think he will be that guy.
No, he's a number one goalie, and they're a team that's on the. I mean, they started off really well. They might have been a year early, 2 years early.
They started out real well with 4 players who are no longer on their roster. They're rebuilding. Their center is Zegras, Mason McTavish, Jamie Drysdale. They're a rebuilding.
Yeah. No,
so I mean, okay, if the goaltender. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, they are rebuilding, but I think they're farther along than most rebuilding teams because
They are, and they need to sell tickets. And Gibson is one of those guys.
And
that,
Gibson's going to keep them in games. Like unless they're in, I don't think they're in tank mode. You know what I mean? I think they're like the only reason you trade Gibson is if you're in tank mode.
I think the only reason you trade Gibson is if you think that by the time it's going to take the length of his contract to be good again, and essentially he's an asset. And if you can get overpaid in a goaltending market that we know there's a number of teams, Edmonton, Toronto, a number of teams that are desperate for a linchpin number one goaltender. If you get overpaid in a trade or you get value, then you do the deal, and if you don't, you don't.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair, Mike. If you gave Verbeek a premium young defenseman and a first-round pick and a guy that can play every day and a young goalie, he might do it.
Yep.
Yeah, right. Then you're talking about right.
But he's not going to move him for draft picks.
Right, and if that's okay, say for example, if it's Toronto, that's Nylander, Sandin, and a number one. That's what it's
smart move for Toronto to make, though.
Yes, they're a good goal. I know that you don't like Gibson.
No, it's not even I don't like Gibson. It's just that Sandin isn't being named in there that I would be really careful about. Like they've been a long time trying to get a half decent top 4.
I know, but that might be the price and they're overloaded on one side with Muzzin, Giordano, and Riley, and Sandin might be somebody that they trade. We don't know. I'm just saying that's a possibility.
Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, to me, that's and Nylander, I understand you're doing, but even that, I mean, I think Anaheim does that absolutely. Like if Anaheim's offered Nylander, Sandin, a number one.
Yeah, Yamamoto, Broberg, and a number one for Edmonton. That probably would be what it would cost the Oilers.
Yeah,
that's less than the Toronto deal.
Yes.
Well, it's got more potential.
I don't think Verbeek would do that deal.
No, I don't think he'd do that deal either. Yamamoto's
just
not.
Yes, got no idea, but I don't think he would.
Yeah. Just a hunch. All right, it's all the time I have for today, folks. We'll be back again tomorrow, and then Wednesday we'll be back with Kevin again to talk about the Stanley Cup Finals, that good old 7-game series that determines who raises the cup above their head. But until then, we'll be here on Hockey Buzz. I'm updating the rumor chart this afternoon from my quarantined room. I've got nothing else to do, so if I don't update it, I'm just being lazy and watching nothing but bad television. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We will talk to you all on Tuesday tomorrow.